The word hello is so ordinary that you probably said it today without thinking. But before 1877, almost nobody said it. It barely existed. Then one invention changed everything, and within a decade, hello had become the most spoken word on the planet. The story of how that happened involves a shout across a medieval forest, a rivalry between two of history's greatest inventors, and a decision made by telephone operators that none of them knew would echo for 150 years. To understand why hello took over, you need to picture a world without it. In the mid-1800s, English speakers greeted each other with good day, good morning, or simply how do you do. These were formal, measured phrases, built for a society where greetings carried social weight. You did not shout at people. You did not bark a single syllable at a stranger and expect it to land as friendly. But out on the American frontier, things worked differently. When you approached someone's home, you needed a way to announce yourself from a distance, something loud, clear, and impossible to mistake for anything else. The phrase recorded in early frontier sources was, "Hello, the house," a shout aimed at the building itself, warning whoever was inside that someone was coming. This is actually where our earliest solid references to the hello family of words come from, in the United States, in the 1840s, on the western frontier, not in a parlor, not in a city, in the open country where volume mattered more than manners. Origin story. Here is where the word gets genuinely interesting because hello did not appear out of nowhere. It is the end point of a long chain of shouting words, each one slightly reshaped by time and geography. The trail goes back to at least the late 1300s to Middle English. There was a verb at that time, hallooing, which meant to shout during a hunt, specifically to call out to the hounds or to other hunters to direct the chase. You were not greeting anyone. You were making noise with a purpose, cutting through forest, over hills, across open ground. The word was a tool for getting attention at a distance. From that root, you get a cluster of related shouts, holla, hollo, and hallo, all variants of the same basic noise. These appear in French as well, holla, which is part of why linguists trace a significant piece of this word's ancestry through French. These were not greetings in the modern sense. They were attention signals. They meant stop, or over here, or listen. The 1848 record is the first time we see hello spelled close to its modern form, and it shows up in American usage, not European. The spelling had drifted, the vowel had shifted, but the function was still essentially the same, a loud call sent ahead of you to announce your presence. Now, this word might have stayed exactly there, a frontier shout, a rough alternative to the formal greeting of polished society, except that in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Bell's invention created an entirely new problem that nobody had solved before. When two people connected on a telephone line, how did you signal that you were ready to speak? There was no visual cue. You could not see the other person's face. You needed a word, short, distinctive, loud enough to carry clearly over the crackling early equipment, and unmistakable from any other word that might be said in conversation. This is where Thomas Edison enters the story. Edison was not Bell's partner. He was actually a competitor in many respects, working on improvements to the telephone's technology. And in 1867, Edison proposed a solution to the how do you begin a call problem. He suggested hello, not as a formal recommendation, but in practical correspondence. He wrote to the president of the Central District and Printing Telegraph Company in Pittsburgh, suggesting that hello was the right word to open a telephone exchange. Why hello? Because it was short, because it was loud, because that H at the start punches through noise in a way that softer sounds do not. Edison, who thought about acoustics professionally, understood that the word needed to work on imperfect equipment. Hello was built for distance and volume, which made it, accidentally, perfect for the telephone. Telephone operators, mostly young women working the early manual switchboards in cities like Boston, New York, and Pittsburgh, began using it almost immediately. And when operators use a word, it spreads. Every single person who made a call heard it first from an operator. Hello was not adopted by the public gradually. It was pushed down from the switchboard consistently and repeatedly to every customer on the network. By the early 1880s, it was already becoming standard. By 1890, it was everywhere. The misconception. The story most people have heard goes like this. Bell wanted callers to say ahoy, the nautical greeting, and Edison's hello won in a battle between two great minds. That framing makes a good story, but it is a little misleading. Bell did apparently favor ahoy as an opening for telephone calls, and there is something charming about that. Ahoy is another attention-getting shout with old roots, and Bell, who loved the sea, genuinely seemed to prefer it. But ahoy never had institutional support. Nobody at the switchboards was using it. The reason hello won was not because Edison defeated Bell in some grand debate, it was because operators on the ground adopted hello early, and once operators were using it, the decision was essentially made for everyone else. Language change almost never happens because one important person decrees it. It happens because the people who use a tool every day settle on what works. The operators were those people. They are the unsung heroes of this particular etymology. Modern echoes. Hello never stopped being an attention signal, even when it became a greeting. Think about how you use it today. When someone goes quiet on a phone call and you say, hello, you're not greeting them. You're doing exactly what those medieval hunters did in the forest. You are sending a noise into uncertain space and waiting to see if anything responds. The word also appears in moments of disbelief or sarcasm. Hello, obviously, where it functions as a kind of verbal tap on the shoulder. Pay attention. Wake up. It retains that original edge of urgency that good morning never had and never will. Even Adele's 2015 hit of the same name uses the word in precisely this double sense, calling across distance, asking to be heard. The oldest meaning of the word is still right there on the surface. Deeper connections. Hello belongs to a family of words that linguists sometimes group as attention getters or phatic expressions, language whose primary job is to open a channel of communication rather than to convey information. Hey, hi, yo, oi in British English, and hola in Spanish all share this function, and several share deep roots with hello as well. Hola in Spanish traces through similar French and Old Germanic roots as the holla and hollo that fed into English hello. Hei in Norwegian and Finnish, hej in Swedish and Danish. These are all part of the same broad family of European attention calls that drifted toward greeting as social contexts changed. What is remarkable is the cultural weight this single word now carries. It is estimated to be among the most spoken words in the world on any given day, largely because of the telephone habit that Edison and those early operators established. Every customer service call, every family check-in, every accidental pocket dial that gets answered, all of it begins with a word that started as a hunter's shout in a medieval European forest, traveled to the American frontier, and then got permanently embedded in human behavior by a piece of copper wire and a young woman at a switchboard in 1877. The telephone did not just change communication. It took a word that had been hovering at the edges of language for 5 centuries and made it inescapable. That is not a small thing. That is how technology and language reshape each other when they collide.